bet your mother had a loud bark.
Good morning. This is Morning Coffee with the Chief. I am your host, Patrick Jordan, here on Pop Culture Minefields and YouTube. You can find this show every 8 a.m. at Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube and on Rumble. You should go back and watch some of my previous shows. We have I think I've got about 50 in the can for this podcast. I also do another podcast. It's on kjradb.com, and that is Briefing with the Chief, where I go to politics. And we're going to do the movie Klute today, and I got a few more things to talk about. Of course, I'll do my pitch on the LA mission, but you can go to speaker www.speaker.com, Briefing with the Chief, and you can find all the audio versions of my show. You can also go to kjrdb.com, the Briefing with the Chief page, and find all the audio versions of my show. But I have three cops, myself and two other guys, and we'll talk a little bit about what happened with former President Donald Trump and now candidate for the Republican Party for president, what happened over there in Pennsylvania. We'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll do our show, which is going to be a great show. And it really is, I have to tell you, the show is because Donald Sutherland's in it. Donald Sutherland passed away recently. I like Donald Sutherland as an actor. I don't know if I liked him as politically, but I liked him as an actor. He's a good guy as an actor. And so we'll go over some of his, I'll ask them what their favorite role is for Donald Sutherland. We'll go over the movie Klute. Now, you can also find me on my X handle is at LASD Jordan. I have to tell you, one of the things I notice is when I post, I get all this hate stuff sent at me from these leftists who don't even use their real name, and so I'm a little sensitive to all the hate that was spewed at Trump and Republicans, because I don't really count myself as a MAGA Republican. I don't walk lockstep behind anybody, right? And I think that's a lot of my friends are exactly that same way. And I look at the policies of the two candidates, and I support the candidate that best supports what I believe in. And actually, because I'm former law enforcement, the one that is most supportive of law enforcement, that's at the top of my list, and economics is next. Now, here, as we always do on my show, I also do talk about the Los Angeles mission. Now, I had the CEO of the Los Angeles mission on my other show, Briefing with the Chief. You can go to that and listen to that interview. He talks about his addiction, his homelessness, his road to recovery through faith, and his road to being the CEO of the LA mission and all the great things they're doing there. Now, they're doing something a little different. They're not just giving people shelter, they're giving people who want temporary shelter, a certain number of people for the night, but they also use that as an opportunity to try and get people in longer recovery programs, 6 to 12 months, and they have pretty good success. And the thing about the LA mission and people who operate like them is they look for the cognitive behavioral, they provide cognitive behavioral therapy for the people as well as medical issues, but that's the key to turning people around and getting them off the streets. It's also a key for people not to recidivate. But you can go to losangelesmission.org. They do get some government money now. Recently, they started getting some money because you know what? They do a good job, and the government's failing, and so they're pushing money to people who actually have a good track record of success, and that is the losangelesmission.org. But most of their money comes from private donations, which is why I'm doing this appeal. Please do me a favor, look up the losangelesmission.org and make your donation today. So, before I bring my guests on, let me introduce the movie. Let's talk about why I'm doing this movie. It's because Donald Sutherland passed away recently. He's a Canadian actor, and passed away June 20th, 2024. And we kind of had, it's the summertime, so it was a little bit of a struggle between me and some guests to do the show. So I had to do a repeat, and then I did another show last week, Deadpool, with Mike Ashley. So we talked a lot about Guns N' Roses because he had a relationship with them. And but Donald Sutherland has done some great movies. I mean, of course, I remember him iconically in the movie MASH with Lauren Swit, The Dirty Dozen, Kelly's Hero, and Klute as the movie we're going to do today, as well as a ton of other shows. Hey, Klute is a very, let's see, Hitchcockian thriller, and it is very suspenseful. Hey, thank you, Slasher Fed. I had not remembered Klute. I was looking for a Donald Sutherland movie that was, police work, detective work, crime stuff, because that tends to be what I focus on this one. And I found Klute, and I didn't remember it. I probably watched it years ago, but I watched it. I go, okay, this one works. This movie works. But Klute was, let me bring up Klute and we'll talk a little bit about the movie, then I'll bring my guests on. So it was released in 1971, an American neo-noir psychological thriller. That's probably what you're talking about, psychological. See, Donald Sutherland and Sir Lawrence Olivier. Are you saying those are your best actors there, Mr. Davis? Anyway, so Klute is, it also stars, in addition to Donald Sutherland, it stars Jane Fonda, in which she won an Oscar for this movie. And I don't know if it, I watched it, I go, man, I'm not a huge fan of Jane Fonda, but, and it's, I have to remember, because we have filmmaking now and filmmaking in the 70s, it's a little different. And I do like Alfred Hitchcock. He does do a lot of those great whodunits. But you know what else is in here? And he's in here as a pimp, is Roy Schneider. He's in this movie. So, but let's bring on our guest. I guess I'll go in rank order here. So it's going to be retired Lieutenant John Baylis. He's been on many times before. He is a movie aficionado. And hey, John, welcome to the show.
Hey, morning. Thanks for having me.
And let's bring on retired Sergeant Scott Orr. He's been more of a recent regular guest. He says he likes doing the show, so I reach out to him. And this is always a good team because it's good exchange. These guys work together in about probably a 12 by 10 office, and so they became very tight as friends. They were very tolerant.
A lot. He had a lot of gas.
very, very tolerant to each other. But they're we got to talk a little bit about the Trump thing before we get into our movie and Donald Sutherland, right? So, okay, so we had a very spirited discussion before we opened up the show about what happened with Donald Sutherland. We're at the very least great incompetence on the part of the Secret Service. There's those conspiracy theories out there, and there's, for me, and I'll let you guys heard me say this, so I'll say it again. For me, competency starts with hiring, and we hear on the internet, oh, this is DEI hiring and all that other stuff. Here's the thing about DEI and all that other stuff. It's, the first they start out by saying that merit is a white supremacy structure to keep the white people on top. That's what they say, and then they justify DEI. So you move away from merit, and it just opens the pool up to hire anybody, right? I mean, so that's the first challenge to this. And I'm not going to say that this was the fault of DEI. What I'm going to say is, if we're not focusing on merit, we get bad outcomes. And if we did not have the best people there, because we are focused more on DEI than merit, then there is a straight line, right, to a lack of merit-based hires and merit-based promotions to events like this. John, what do you think?
Oh, totally agree. It's like anything, when they wanted to change the Marine Corps qualifications, for the physical agility and everything else, to get more women in the top groups. No. When they changed the qualifications for our department, the LA Sheriff's Department, and they changed this many times over the years to get enough people in. And when you see people that are getting in the academies that are 300 pounds and overweight, and they can't understand why they didn't make it. Come on. When you drop qualifications, all you're doing is diluting the water, so to speak, diluting what you have, and you're ruining it. You really are. White, black, brown don't matter. I work with brown. I work with white. My daughter's brown.
Yeah.
She's half Mexican. I'm Italian. We work with everybody, and I've worked with, let me tell you something. I work with a few females on the department. I'd rather have them in a patrol car than some of the guys I worked with, because there were some guys out there that were just worthless. But then you have these females that they'll stand toe to toe. They may get their ass kicked, but they will be hard chargers and do the job that they're supposed to do. But when you drop the qualifications to let people in, look at when I worked for the sheriff. Look at on the board every day they had how many people took the written. 3,000 took the written. 50% fail the written. So they wanted to lower the written. So they changed the written. Still 50% failed the written, even when they lowered the standard.
I just got to tell this story because it was one of the, I took the test for the sheriff's department, right? And I'm in this room. There's probably 50 people there. and they call out like 20 names. And said, "Okay, you guys go on outside." And I'm thinking, and they call out my name. And I'm thinking, shit, I failed? No way. There's no way, right? I failed. I go outside and they say, "Oh, well, you guys are the guys that are passed. So here's you guys got to show up at this date and this time. The other people didn't pass, so we're going to talk to them about, studying or whatever and coming back, whatever." So I was in shock. But yeah, it was more than 50% failed at that time. So Scott, you were in the Marines, right? And so you're in the military. So let's talk about perishable skills. We saw some criticism of the agents in terms of being able to put their gun in their holster, or even just planning a security thing, because security is different than law enforcement. And the people who train the most, the people who focus on those perishable skills, the people who discuss what is the best way to handle things, they outperform those who don't, right? So what I saw is maybe a retreat from those skill sets that are necessary to do this kind of work. Maybe they get sidetracked by other stuff. So focusing on skill sets necessary to survive or succeed is critical in the military and law enforcement, right?
Yeah, you have to. If you don't train, like the best thing the department ever did was what they went to the quarterly qualification instead of the once yearly or whatever, twice yearly or whatever it was when I first came on the department. And my only thing with having been in some incidents that you guys know, but
Yeah.
Yep.
is if you don't practice, like I'm not a gun guy. I mean, I like to shoot. My daughter was here for a week in Tennessee. I taught her how to shoot everything from a AR-15 down to a little 22 Derringer. So, but she wanted to learn. And if you don't continue to practice, then your skills are going to just diminish. Just like I loved when I played football in college. I loved to practice. But a lot of guys didn't like me in practice because I would practice the same way that I would play in a game.
Like
I look at practice as I'm going to be playing in a game. If I just kind of take it easy while we practice, I'm going to have a tendency to take it easy when I'm playing. So you can't let in the Marine Corps, it's drilled into you. You have that rifle with you well, you used to, I don't know anymore, but you used to have that rifle everywhere you went.
Yeah, and so you bring up the issue. It's complacency, and what I saw was complacency. Clearly, that to me, I know there's a lot of people say it's conspiracy. Other crazy people are saying it's staged. My biggest this is a failure because of complacency and a lack of focus and a lack of leadership. And so, I mean, that's kind of how I see it. It might, some of the seeds of failure might be in training and a lack of focus on perishable skills, and it might be, they're doing a lot of these events and they're just kind of cutting corners might also be it. I did hear that this might have been the B team. The A team was drawn off for other events. I don't know that to be true. I will be looking forward to the investigation if we have a clean investigation. I think the legitimacy.
Yes.
You guys, beforehand, we had some legit criticism that you can't trust the FBI, and you can go to my show, Briefing with the Chief. I have an FBI whistleblower on my show, and he says, yeah, you can't trust the FBI right now. So that was Stephen Friend. So
you see the first thing they said after
what's
the
that?
shooting? Within
Baby
3
gun.
hours, they said he's a lone wolf suspect.
Yeah.
They were discounting anything else. That's the FBI.
At 130 yards,
yeah.
To say that, I love when these people say, oh, it was staged. At 130 yards, do you know how hard, with no training, he's a 20-year-old kid, I'm sure he doesn't have a whole lot of training, to hit something about this big from 130 yards with no training.
Yeah.
My son is a long rifle for his SWAT team, and he's like, that had to be, if that kid was a lone wolf and it was all staged, whoever shot him had to be an outstanding shot to just nick in the ear.
Yeah, it was the exactly. But
well, it's
the police sniper that killed him was 300 yards away and took him out right dead center.
Yeah. They just say he was not allowed on his high school rifle team, but he did belong to a local rifle club. So for at least for 6 months. So we'll see. I will say I got a chance to shoot the M4 when I was making a decision on the threat interdiction unit would carry, and you know how they have that gong way up on the hill. It's like
Yeah.
400 yards away. They say, "Can you
Yeah,
hit it?"
wayside.
One shot, boom, steel sights. I hit that sucker. So, but you know what? I didn't have anybody shooting at me. I wasn't panicked, and you know what I mean. So it was just control your breathing, take your time, boom, hit it. You know, so I was pretty proud because I
Yeah,
was an
I'm not
executive
even
at the
sure
time.
what weapon this kid had.
Well,
Yeah,
they
there's
said
been.
AR-15, but
I had
AR-15
one. Several
style is
articles
what I
said
heard.
AR-15.
So
Yes,
A couple
style.
said
With
Creedmoor
style.
6.5.
yeah, so was it a 22 that looked like an AR-15? Who knows? I don't know. So we'll find out. But hey, good discussion. I think we got to get into our show. But before we get into the show, let's talk about Donald Sutherland. I think I got a picture of Donald Sutherland, Kelly's Hero, a movie that I always liked. Martine, do you still have those? I know I sent them to you a while ago because we were going to do this a couple weeks ago. There he is, Oddball. And and I got another. I think I got another picture of him when he was in the Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Right. Let's see. There it is. Now I have to tell you, this picture here. This is a picture of a woke person who found another person who's not woke. Right. Remember that he's. Okay, you can take that one down. You can take that. I mean, whenever you know how that is you put something on Twitter that's not woke, or you say something. Oh my God, he's not. If that, I always thought of that scene from Invasion of the Body Snatchers, right? So, all right, so I'm trying to think of what is my best. MASH was. Donald Sutherland was very good at MASH, so I liked MASH, and it spawned a
MASH would
television
probably
series.
be my favorite.
Yeah. So all right. So what your favorite Donald Sutherland movie, John? You say it's MASH, and why?
MASH, and then recently, I don't care for his son either, Kiefer, but there was on Prime there was a Western where Kiefer was a gunslinger and his dad like a preacher or something, and it was well done together. They worked very well together. It was a well done movie, but I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah. No. I wouldn't say I'm a fan of Kiefer either, but I was. I do like that where the dad and the son get together and they make a movie. I mean, I'm not a fan of Jane Fonda, but I like Henry. They did on Golden Pond together, I believe, right? So, we'll talk about her in a little bit. We'll talk. So, Scott, favorite Donald Sutherland movie?
I would say MASH, but I also liked him in the Italian Job with Mark Wahlberg. He wasn't on it for a long time, but he was really good in that. But I liked him in MASH a lot. I thought he was pretty funny in MASH. But you talk about MASH nowadays, and everybody's like, "Oh, it was a great TV show." Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't
know it came from a movie.
Yeah, and of course Jane Fonda's in the movie, and obviously she's not an award-winning person for us, but she did win the Academy Award for this movie, and I was watching it, I go, I don't know. It always comes down to what the competition was too, right? When somebody wins that award.
A lot of politics involved in that crap.
Yeah, and she was 71. She would have been, at the peak of her fame, I think. She had already gone to, had she already gone to Hanoi? I mean, no, that was later on.
That was she went in 72, I believe.
72?
Yeah, to Vietnam.
Yeah, you can't say her name. When my father-in-law, who did 2 tours in Vietnam, if you even said Fonda or fondue for that matter, he would just go off.
I don't blame him. I would too. Her claim to fame was Cat Ballou in '65, and that was a great movie with Lee Marvin. And that's when I still liked her because she hadn't done her bullshit yet. But once she met Tom Hayden, the SDS terrorist who became a senator in the state, and they got married. And then she went to Vietnam and did all her bullshit. And I know exactly how your dad feels. Disgusting.
Yeah, so Slasher Fred is talking about Roy Schneider. He's also in this movie. He was in French Connection, and he was Popeye Doyle's partner. I'm trying to think of Gene Hackman was the guy there. But Slasher Fred, he also, and we did this movie on this show. He was also in the movie The 7-Ups.
Yep, that's when he was. He was the lead in that.
He was the lead in that. A great
that's what really
chase.
Made him. Then he did the French Connection, and then later on Jaws.
Great. If you look at that chase scene, one of the best chase scenes was, I think, in 7-Up, and it was The person who drove in that also drove in Bullet,
Bullet.
which also had a great chase scene. And yes, let's see, we got Anthony Davis said the acclaimed thriller which sees a call girl become involved. So this is Lee Davis. And yeah, so she becomes a call girl. And it's interesting. I did a little research on Jane Fonda's preparation for this. She got involved in the method active. She hung around with call girls and prostitutes, I guess, to get the lingo down. I don't know. 20 for this, and so she got involved in the method acting. I mean, how far do you go with the method acting? I guess I don't know. I mean,
with her, it's probably all the way.
Taking the phone call from the client, doing the negotiation. I mean, how far do you go with that? But apparently, she did do the method acting thing, and I looked up the definition method acting before, but it's really trying to get into the shoes of the character you're in, trying to understand them. And I think it's also drawing on your own experiences that might relate to your character so that you use that emotion to come out. And I think who's the great method actor Rod Steiger's a great method actor. He was in In the Heat of the Night, if you remember him. And Marlon Brando is a method actor.
Marlon Brando, yeah. Some of those guys get into that and they stay in it for like 3 months, even off set. They stay in that character. I don't see it, but that's what they do.
Oh, yeah. Well, we did Taxi Driver, right? Robert De Niro. They said that that's the way he was on set, that he did that, and so that he was acted as the loner because that's who he is in the movie, and I guess it just made it easier for everybody else to react to him that way when it's being shot. But she did that, and she's in the movie, and she won an Oscar for it. So we'll give her kudos for the Oscar.
I didn't think the movie was that great of a movie when I watched it.
I was listening to a critique of it. It wasn't a critique. It was really, they were talking about what a great movie it was. And so you never know, because I always wonder, these critiques on YouTube, are they funded by the people who now own the movie, right? to get you to watch the movie. You never know, right? We don't own the rights to any of the movies. So our comments are. So Scott, what do you think of Jane Fonda in this thing? I mean, we're going to get into some of the scenes, but.
Well, I thought she did it. She won an Academy Award. I thought she did a good job. I mean, I'm no fan by any means, but I'm not one of those guys that just because I hate her, I'm automatically going to say, "Oh, she sucked." But no, she did a good job. She played the part pretty well. There were some things I kind of questioned, but
yeah,
I thought she did a great job in it. And obviously, the Academy, but to me, the Academy Awards, or all these music shows or awards shows, it's like, hey, let's pat each other on the back and tell us how great we all are.
Exactly. I haven't watched one in I don't know how 20, 25 years.
I don't watch them either. I get all the information from my wife or my daughter, and they'll go, "Well, who cares?" "Oh, I can't believe you say that," but I'm like,
yeah.
Exactly. I didn't watch her clip where she accepted it, but she said she had talked to her dad. Her dad said, basically says, because you can tell she was she's politically whatever woke at the time. I guess she was probably one of the first that was politically woke, and her dad told her to refrain, basically, and she kind of made that comment on stage. And so good advice from Dad. I mean,
he was an outstanding actor. I mean,
yeah,
I mean, just a great actor.
And I mean, because her comments and some of these actors, they piss off a whole chunk of people.
Yep.
And I mean, your goal is your fans so they enjoy your craft. When you start spouting out and saying stuff you shouldn't be saying, that this is political or attacks a particular group, you turn a whole group of people off, right? So, but anyways, Hollywood's been allowed to do that. So Klute, the opening scene. Let's roll the opening scene. Martine. And she is based in, oh my God, what city? She's based in New York, right? This is where Martine, are you there? She's a call girl in New York. Now I did do some research. The apartment wasn't really an apartment. It was designed and crafted on a set, right? So
yeah, sure.
Right. So I mean, when I looked at the where she lived at, I was like, okay, crappy apartment. So here the opening scene is really about where Klute is involved. He's somehow connected with this family where somebody disappears, and he gets hired. And they show him later on in a uniform. I saw Tucson, and I don't know if that was Tucson, Arizona. Did you see his patch? It said Tucson, right? So we'll see.
No, it
Hopefully,
was upstate New York. It was shit. I can't think of the name of it now.
well, we'll see the patch. I thought, oh, where the hell is that at? I could only think of Tucson, Arizona. He looked like it was more sheriff than police, right? And you see all the characters here, and one of these guys ends up disappearing, and Klute gets hired to look for him, and following that trail leads him to Jane Fonda, and ultimately who did the killing. But there's also this tape that they keep playing, and it's like, I just wrote down, as long as you don't hurt me more than I like to be hurt, it's okay. Let's let it all hang out.
Can you focus on his patch?
It can't do
the
that.
City that he's in.
It's so I guess upstate New York probably had light uniforms like this. I was thinking, why would they?
I don't even know if it's a real city, but it's a weird name that they used.
Yeah, it was Tucson. We'll see. Maybe it'll pop up here. So, and this guy is, the killer ends up being a very wealthy industrialist and from Chicago. And that's the other thing. These guys were from Chicago. They weren't necessarily from New York. So that's why I was confused. Where was he a police officer at? Because he was a police officer. I don't know if he retired and then looked into this case. They don't really make that kind of clear, right? At least not in my mind. So,
well, I read somewhere Klute was supposed to be from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
But
maybe it was Pennsylvania.
But then if he's a cop and he gets hired to investigate, that's where it kind of threw me off. It's like, wait a minute. If he's a police officer, how does he get hired as a detective working for the bad guy, essentially?
Well, I mean, you can see the opening scene. He's at Thanksgiving with these folks, and so he has a personal relationship with the guy ends up missing, right? And these people. So there's some connection there. They don't really delve too deeply into that. And the other thing is they do discuss, should we just hire detectives in New York? Why are we going to send this guy who doesn't have any experience in New York? And so, the thing you think of is maybe he expected Klute to fail, the guy who hired him. Maybe that's what he wanted, because we do later find out he's the killer. But
I figured it out in the first 10 minutes.
Oh, who it was?
I'll explain later.
Yeah, your TV ESP, your movie ESP.
Yeah, I'll explain it later.
Okay. But here's something. So Jane Fonda got top billing this, right? And in part of the scene, they do show a tape, and it's the old style tape. What do they call that? Where it's the tape recorder. I forget what we used to call it, Memex or something like that. It was just, it's no longer digital, right? And they keep showing this reel-to-reel tape thing during the movie. And then the other thing I just noticed is the clothes. Guys' clothes really haven't changed that much, but women's clothes have changed a lot, in these scenes. So, any thoughts on the opening scene and who Klute is, where he was working at, and just the whole plot? No. Here's the old reel-to-reel thing.
No, that's the thing of this movie. The way they cut it, all of a sudden, you're at this dinner, and the next day or next whenever, he's missing. Nothing to show what happened or anything else.
Yeah, they don't really give you like the timeline.
Klute mentioned during the show that he left the department to do this, or took a hiatus and was a private investigator when he was talking to Jane Fonda. So he must have gotten some pretty good green, because cops, let's face it, back then, especially on the East Coast, they don't make much at all. Remember what we were making in those years? They were making less.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, So we got a comment from Lee Davis. Let's not forget Peter Fonda was in Easy Rider and Dirty Mary and Crazy Larry, and also her legendary father Henry. Yeah, well, we can't forget Henry Fonda. He was in so many good movies. And Peter Fonda, he was a decent actor. I think he was less political than Jane. And Easy
he was
Rider.
political, but he wasn't as boisterous and as wild as she was, especially when she married Tom Hayden. But his best movie was Yuli's Gold, when he kind of came back. And he did a real good job in that, Peter.
Who was that? Who else was an Easy Rider? It was
Jack Nicholson and
Jack Nicholson. So three, two very good. Yeah, Dennis Hopper, was it?
Dennis Hopper, yeah.
Dennis Hopper and Jack Nicholson. So two really good A-list actors. At the craft, not just name-wise. They're both as actors great acting craft. So here's the reel-to-reel thing. God, I just remember when we had to, you get the guys with the reel-to-reel thing that had them put them in their pocket, and every time because they got so many complaints and traffic tickets, I'd make them carry them, and suddenly the complaints dropped. So, but here you had these big things, different 60s and 70s that we just didn't have that micro technology that they have in the movie, right? And the other thing, I guess we probably should talk about coming out of the 60s, the gifted 10 Pop Culture Minefield memberships. Well, thank you so much, Jim. Coming out of the 60s, where it was the free love generation, right? So engaging in all the different sexuality things, because one of the things is this prostitute, Jane Fonda, she provides sexual services where hurting the prostitute is okay. And I just remember when we worked in West Hollywood, John, they had a dominatrix place, right? And,
and so there was one just a block down from the station.
Yeah, there was a dominatrix place, and and people would enjoy that. And then they had all kinds of different sexual proclivities that were, for our audience to understand. So West Hollywood was just kind of this enclave where all of your sexual fantasies could be. In this, what was it, 2 square miles could be
2.1 miles.
2.1 miles in this little piece of Hollywood. In fact, it was so I want to say it was so normalized in mainstream. Remember when they took down the massage parlor, and the owner of the massage parlor ended up being the dean of the business school at Cal State Northridge?
I thought it was Pepperdine, but yeah, Northridge.
It was Cal State Northridge. So so that's what. So basically, but coming out of the 60s, we went with the 50s where things were a little more restrained sexually. 60s it was free love, and then you had these prostitutes that would provide whatever service you wanted, including don't hurt me more than I want to be hurt, but let us all hang out. It's okay to hurt me a little bit, I guess. So let's. So interesting scene. Jane Fonda playing a prostitute. Let's. I kind of want to throw. She comes home after this. It's in the movie. I don't have it as a scene, but she comes home, lights up marijuana, and starts drinking wine. That's the life of a prostitute, probably when they're done. Although it's much worse. So she's. We need to clarify. She's a high class call girl, right?
I was going to say she was a little classier than some.
Yeah.
Because, she had a nice apartment and she's drinking wine. No short dogs. No little hidden bag with bourbon in it, but and plus with her clothing too, she was a little bit higher class.
She had higher clients.
Yep.
Right.
But did you notice when she fed her cat what she did? She's feeding the cat. She's scooping the food out, and then she licks the spoon clean and throws it in the sink.
I didn't notice that, but I never saw the cat. Did you? I was like, "Where's the damn cat at?" She puts food out, but I don't.
Yeah.
He must have. Maybe his contract. They couldn't work out any contract deals, or it got cut out or something. Because I never saw the cat. I go, why did they do this scene where they're feeding the cat and then you never see the cat? Right?
Exactly.
Think about it. I'm like, where the hell is the cat? My lovely wife is upstairs. She's working. Hello, Patty, and we have a cat. And so it makes its presence known, particularly when it wants to eat, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They show a lot of her in her apartment, but you never see that cat.
Yeah. Maybe the
Yeah.
cat is off catching mice or something. I thought, okay, why the hell
Well,
did
in
they
New York,
show that?
New York probably was.
Yeah.
But
Hey,
did you also
Cam.
notice in the apartment what was on the wall?
What?
A black and white drawing of John F. Kennedy.
Oh, we got Martina. She got word that the cat wasn't a commie, and she made sure that cat was fired from production. Yeah, probably. Didn't like being called comrade, right? So they got rid of the cat, right?
That's
I just
hilarious.
that is an oddity. So, and I probably wouldn't have focused on it had I not been married to Patty and having a cat. It's like, but where's the damn cat? Hello, everybody. Chief Patrick Jordan, morning, gentlemen, and Jim Water. Thank you for the membership, my friend. That's awesome. Okay, welcome aboard, Cam Can. So. But yeah, so she's coming home, she's drinking wine, and she's smoking marijuana. And I go, okay, well, whatever. The prostitutes, a lot of the ones that we had to deal with were using methamphetamine and heroin on the streets, right? That's who would. Yeah, I will say I was in Vegas, and I was with friends, and they went to get breakfast, and I hit a $300 jackpot. And suddenly this very nice lady comes over to me and says, would you like some company? I swear to God, I said, that's okay. No, thank you. I'm taking my winnings home with me, right? So
that's your neighborhood, John.
they work the hotels, right? The higher class ones are going to work the hotel. They're going to be cleaner, and
they're everywhere. And the real
she knew I had the money because she saw me cashing out, right? So it's pretty funny. But okay, so let's roll the next scene. My name is Klute, and this is where he introduces himself to Jane Fonda, which I thought was interesting. Did you know they had a relationship during and after this film?
No.
Maybe that's the method acting stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe she pretended to be a prostitute.
In method acting, you had to fall in love with your counterpart or hey, let's roll the scene. My name is Klute, Martine. And let's see. So what do you still want to do? And it's well, geez, Martina, are we losing you, Martine? Where you at?
Here, battling with this thing. I'm gonna re-upload the file. Apparently, there's some malfunction.
Okay, well, go ahead and roll it when you get a chance. So basically, Klute comes. Obviously, he gets hired. You hear the debate: should we hire locals or should we hire Klute? In the end, you realize they're probably trying to hire Klute, or the bad guy is because he thinks he's going to fail, right? And he's at a disadvantage because he's not from New York. He doesn't know the city, doesn't really know the players. But Klute is, he seems to be driven. I think based upon the first scene, he's driven not just by money, but by personal relationships with the person who's missing and the family. He wants to bring, what do they call that, closure to the family. So he's driven more by than just money. And but he meets Jane Fonda, and Jane Fonda is not having it. She's not interested in communicating with him. He indicates that he's a private detective. She wants nothing to do with him. And he just kind of nags her until she finally lets him in, right? And during that first conversation where she lets him in, and I'm trying to remember the scene here. That's why I was hoping Martine could roll it. We'll see if he can't get that done. But at first, she kind of shuts the door. But he takes a place in her building, and to stay close, to monitor her, and also to nag her, right, so that he can eventually get some, because she's the lead to wherever Tom is, the guy who's missing, the executive's missing. I guess we need to say this. So Tom, one of the executives to this company that's hired him, is missing, and his job is to look for him. Here he is. My name is Klute. And I don't think Donald Sutherland is a handsome guy, so that's just my opinion. No, he's gangly in this one and tall. He's not a small guy. I think he's 6'4". I'm an investigator. He's looking for Tom Grunman. And she doesn't remember. I don't know how many clients she's had, but let's say if this is like 3 or 4 years later, right? Let's say you do one client a week. You're talking a couple hundred clients, way more than that probably, and she doesn't remember the guy, right?
They made a remark in the movie. Somebody did, maybe it was the cops or somebody, that some of these high class ones, they'll do 2 tricks a day, every day. So you're talking over 700 hits.
Oh, yeah. Well, hopefully she's going to the doctor to get screened, right? On some of these guys, and of course, the suggestion is she's only dealing with high end, but you see her later on in the movie. Hey, I need a gig, and she's willing to do one for $50. Now it is 1970. $50 is probably equivalent to $200. Her standard fee is $200, but that's probably equivalent to $800. You know what I mean? If you just start doing,
right. I remember when she came out of one of the, she's trying to be an actress and she didn't get the part. She calls them and says, "Hey, I need a trick. I need $50." Damn, it's cheap. I even wrote on here. Must have been cheap back in the day.
Here we go. Here's the scene. Let's see if it
My wife
stays
made
in there.
Same comment.
Yeah. Martine is struggling. That's the second time it dropped off. But I was on the high class call girls versus wait a minute. I wrote something. Why did you still want to trick? So,
Chief, I have a serious problem. It doesn't allow me to bring it here. If I decide to play it as in a player and share the screen, it doesn't allow me. So I don't know.
Well, we're gonna
somewhere. Hey, it happens.
Let's see. Well, the show must go on, right? So let's see.
Absolutely.
Popping in to say hello, Anima. So what is this? A computer issue? You just need a new computer, Martin?
Yes, it's a computer issue.
It's a computer issue. All right. Well, we would put Scott on it, but he's not in the right place to fix it. He was our computer guy when things would break for us.
Okay.
I sure as hell wasn't.
No.
Here we go.
You gonna try it again?
Yes, here we go.
Here we go. See if it drops off again. Oh, that's second.
It's rolling. It's rolling. Yeah.
It's rolling. All right. All right. We have overcome the technical difficulties to bring you Dane. I think it's probably the comrade. You probably didn't play the comrade enough here to get this work. So here, my name is Klute, and Jane Fonda back in the day. She's a good looking woman.
Hey Pat, there's the name of the police department.
Yep, Tuscarora.
Tuscarora.
Pennsylvania, yeah.
Tuscarora, Pennsylvania. It's an Indian word, so yeah, it's probably a real place in Pennsylvania.
As Dr. Oh, wait a minute. See, Donald Sutherland appeared with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee in Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. Wow. In 1965. So that sounds like a B movie to me. I'll have to look that one up here because we do police shows or detective or crime dramas here, but she was a good looking woman back in the day, right? She's still, for her age, she's still a nice looking lady. Here she is. She's not a cop. You're not the FBI.
She's never been attractive.
Oh, you've never been attracted to her?
Oh. Well, by the way, real quick, I looked up Tuscarora State Park, Tuscarora Township in Pennsylvania. They have their own police department.
A township, so it's probably a pretty small place, right? So,
yeah.
But how does it get? Because I think the industrialists involved here is from Chicago. So how do they? Well, actually, family members. I guess they handle that via
the missing guy was the one he knew, and the wife, and that Charles Ciaffi, the killer. He's from Chicago originally, but it's a small township. So
here she is. Here's the 70s glasses. You got the big glasses on, right? And is this where she's going for the interview and she doesn't get it?
She's leaving or something.
And she does have end up talking to a psychologist throughout this movie, and I wrote down. I think she talks about why do you want a trick, right? Well, I'm in control. So she talks about the difference between an actress and not having really any control and being a high class call girl where she can manage the trick and do whatever she wants until the trick doesn't want it, I guess, and does whatever they want. Because we've seen Johns can be violent, right? They could, and so I think these girls are putting themselves at a really difficult situation when they just go out with whoever, right? That calls them up. I always felt this incredibly unsafe. But she feels like she's in control, and she kind of says that, right? And the other thing is, I wrote down, they want me daddy issues, right? That's what I wrote down. I don't think they really say that, but they want me. I'm in control, and I just wrote down daddy issues. That this is women that probably they want me. Because it's when you're rejected as a kid, you end up having these constant. You're trying to meet the needs of your parent or your dad or whoever's doing it. Particularly women, they have daddy issues, right? And that's what I wrote. Doesn't like rejection. She has control. Doesn't like rejection. Those are the kind of things I wrote for this scene. I don't know. What do you think, John? Think she's got daddy issues? Do you agree?
She got a lot of issues. Yeah.
No, we're not talking the actress, the character, right?
Yeah, no. Well, she had daddy issues in real life too. They didn't see eye to eye, but also going back to where she had her psychiatrist she was talking to, that's when she needed the $50 because she said, I can't afford you anymore. So she needed a trick real quick. And then she bought some flowers for somebody else. But yeah, she had some definite daddy issues. There's a lot of issues with hookers. A lot of them are abused. And this is where what gets me, being a cop, when we always heard the news media, or the left, it's a victimless crime.
Right.
No, it's not. A lot of those people don't want to be doing what they're doing. They were abducted. They were slaved. And you know what I mean? They were gotten to be heroin addicts, and that's the life that they were leading, and they couldn't get out. And they still can't get out.
And we saw it work in West Hollywood, John, the Hollywood area. Kids would get off the bus and or the train and get to Hollywood and think they're going to be the next star, and they get sucked up by some pimp and get them hooked on coke or meth was the big one.
Meth.
that I recall. And they get hooked on that, and they have to start turning tricks. I mean, I remember the whole Beverly Sunset, the Doheny Motel, the Alta Sienna. I mean, I'm just thinking all these little motels where, particularly the Beverly Sunset, that stuff was happening there, and it was out of control. And a lot of them, they were good-looking ladies. Some of them in Hollywood, some were used up. Boy, they just But so it's not surprising. She's an actress. She can't get jobs. She turns to tricking. And the thing about it is, it's not just women. It's guys and gals.
In West Hollywood, a lot of guys
get sucked into this stuff, and they get hooked up. I know, bad use of words, right? Danny Regalado has joined us, and he's got a throw-up face for Fonda. I know, but Danny, if you're just joining us, we had to do this show because I'm looking for a crime drama involving a Donald Sutherland, right? So, and this was the one that I came across, and I saw that Jane Fonda was also in it, and she also got an Academy Award for it. But thank you for joining the show. I'll have to have you back on my show as a guest here. Nice to see you guys. Have a great rest of the day. That's from Camp Can for one of our other guests. Klute is less interested in the killer and more in a character. In a killer and more in a character. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I thought she was hot until I found out about her actions and statements during Vietnam. Well, she was a different kind of hot. Like she was, it's crazy that somebody would do that while we're at war. I don't get it. I don't understand this what is going on with this anti-Semitism on college campuses either. These attacking of Jewish folks. I mean, I just read a thing where people are suing George Gascon, the DA in LA County, because he's discriminated against Jews in his office. I mean, the actions and behaviors of the left have gotten they were out of control then, and it's like crazy leftism reduxed from the 60s till now, right? And although it's on steroids, and it's pushed by a lot of our mainstream politicians, right? So Donald had 5 kids, including Keither, who did 24. Yeah, I remember that. I liked 24. It was a good series. So okay, so let's get back to our movie. Let's roll the next scene, Martine, and can I ask you some questions? So Klute is trying to he's trying to get a relationship with Jane, not because you know how you have to build a relationship as a detective. You were Detective Scott, so you get him to talk. He's just trying to open that door. He's trying to get that relationship. He's trying to get her to ask questions, and he's trying to get her to trust him, so that he can ask and he'll get some honest answers out of her. Ultimately, he needs her help because he needs somebody that can. He needs a tour guide for New York City because he's not from there. So hey, talk about you got to get the door open. Sometimes you have reluctant witnesses, right, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, you always got to try to find some hook that you can get them to talk with, and a lot of times, I mean, I dealt with gang members, which is a lot different than dealing with a lot of normal people. But not that they're not normal, but okay, maybe they're not normal, but a lot of times you just get them talking about, hey, what is your mom going to think about us arresting you, or what are you going to do when you go to jail and your kids, got to drive all the way up to the middle of California just to see you on a weekend maybe, and blah. And then pretty soon they start to break down, and especially the young ones. Older guys, the OG guys have been through the program before. They just tell you to F off. I'm not talking to you, which is fine, which pretty much who's going to talk and who's not going to talk when you went in there. But a lot of times, I had a young gal who's pretty high up now in the department, and we were interviewing a guy, and I said, hey, we're just going to read him what the report says, and we're just going to stand back and wait. And we read what the deputies wrote in the report, and finally, a few minutes later, he's looking at us, and we're just staring at him, and finally he goes, there's no way the deputies could have seen me put that AK-47 behind a boat. And I was like, okay, thanks, turn the recorder off.
made him uncomfortable, and then called them out as liars. Well, this is the scene where she tries to seduce Klute, right? She tries to seduce him. He's just here for sex. That he's not really here to answer questions, and so she's testing him, right?
Didn't he bug her phone?
No, I don't think we do realize that somebody's stalking her. She does eventually tell him that, and in this scene, he hears that there's somebody on the roof, if you remember. But she's doing this whole "let me seduce you" kind of thing, and let me see what you're really here for. You're really just here for sex. You're not really here to ask any questions. You have another motive. That's what this is about. And so she's trying to manipulate this. So she had this interaction with Tom about 2 years ago, right? And so. But the interesting, well, one, I have to talk about the tight dress, the shiny sequin dress here. So that's what she's wearing, I guess, with her client, because it seems like she's coming home from working with somebody. And this is a la 70s, this kind of dress, is what I remember. But
like John was saying with the timeline, this part, I'm like, she's talking about 2 years ago. So how long has it passed?
There we go, Tuscarora.
Since his death.
He's been missing. They haven't found him, so he's looking for a missing person that's likely dead, right?
But from 2 years ago.
Right, and they're talking about she's getting letters and she's getting phone calls, and that's laid out. But she's trying to seduce him, and he's not going for it. And then he changes his tactics, and he does look like he's going for it, but he does it because he realizes there's somebody on the roof, and he eventually goes up there. And for this is the kind of scene where, okay, she's saying all this stuff is happening to her. I think this is the point where he realizes he's on the right path, because she's the right person, and somebody's stalking her, and he realizes that, right? And then he ends up going on the roof looking for her. You remind me of my uncle. That's what she says to him. She's definitely got daddy issues, I guess. I don't know if she ends up wanting to sleep with him. So what do you think of the scene, John? She's definitely trying to manipulate the situation.
Oh,
see
yeah.
if he's really
legitimate. The attitude of hookers in general, they think that cops are dirty and cops want them. That's the only reason that they're coming around, and they can seduce them and blah, blah, blah. They just think everybody just is all about them. And no, we don't play that game, but in their mind, cop just wants me. He just wants a little piece of action. And when he didn't go for it, pissed her off.
Well, actually, I think when he said there's somebody on the roof, she's like, oh, for her,
Yeah.
it's like, now suddenly he switched from being somebody she can manipulate to somebody that I think, remember, she has daddy issues and he wants somebody to protect her. I think that this scene changed her mindset towards him. He's a protector. He's one of those guys. He's
true.
that guy, and I can trust this guy because he's not just ripping my clothes off. He's saying there's somebody on the roof, just stay here. And then he immediately pulls out his gun, which I thought was unusual because they have such gun control in New York, right? And he goes on the roof. He would be arrested and imprisoned. I was just reading a gunsmith in New York. He got a 10-year sentence. Some judge, a black guy, he used to do woodwork. He got into gunsmithing, built his own gun. And because he was buying the parts, the ATF and the NYPD hit his place. He never sold anything, didn't do anything with them. It was a hobby for him. And they put him in prison for 10 years. And he had 25 years experience in the computer science field, where he was he was a computer engineer.
Yeah.
He was not a crook at all, and they put him in jail for 10 years. Unbelievable in New York. So nowadays, Klute would be in prison. He wouldn't be solving any crimes in New York, right? What do you think, Scott? No? Any comments, Scott? No?
Well, I read that article about that poor guy. It was during COVID, and it's like, I got nothing to do. I can't go anywhere. So he went down to his basement, and he built himself a gun from spare parts, basically. It wasn't like he was milling them and then somehow it got out that he built this gun, and because it wasn't serialized, they called it a ghost gun.
Right.
But
right.
again, look who the DA is for New York.
But a 10-year sentence. 10 years.
Yeah, for nothing.
No criminal record. 10 years. Unbelievable.
Well, that's because the ATF, we had a court decision just last week from the Supreme Court that cut the nuts off of ATF because they have been making their own laws.
Chevron.
Interpreting laws their own way, and that's over with. So I'll venture to say once Trump gets in, he will be pardoned because there's no way in hell he should have ever been charged. But that's the ATF, and that's why the Supreme Court made that decision.
That's the Chevron decision. So it was allowing administrative agencies to read the law and interpret the law in an expansive way.
Their own law.
And make their own law, and a lot of people are wringing their hands over it. I'm kind of for it. If they want a law, if the legislatures want stricter, they got to be more clear. I mean, there are a bunch of lawyers up there, so when they leave it wide open, they're leaving it wide open for the administrative. I guess they call it the swamp now. I would just say administrative agencies to do whatever they want, and I don't think that's right. Because you can't read a section. You can't read the section that they pass and say, well, how do you connect these regulations with this law? And that's the problem, right? And for me, it creates undue legal threats to people, but more importantly, undue litigation, right?
I agree.
So maybe if
that guy never should have been charged.
If we make our laws clear, right? So that's crazy. But so Klute would be in jail right now. Hey, let's roll the scene with Rod. We got. Let's do one more scene, Martin, and then we'll take our break. Rod Schneider, and this is where he's a pimp.
Schneider.
I'm sorry, Rod Schneider. Thank you. And so now that he's her protector, and and she's going to be his guide through New York City and help him out in to try and solve this problem. And one of the things is there's one of her co-parts, one of her female prostitutes, had a connection with Tom as well, and they're trying to find that woman. And so they're going through all these different pimps, see if maybe this pimp knows who Jane Fonda slept with 2 years ago, and who else might have been with that person? Because I think if she remembers, somebody else was busy, so it got shifted to her, right? The client got shifted to her. I think that's how that happened. So this other prostitute was also somebody that had contact. It was a regular for her, and so she's that. So that's the investigative path that he's taken, right? And so they go and they talk to the pimp, Rod Schneider. Schneider? Like it's right.
Scheider.
Scheider. Okay, thank you.
Scheider.
Now, I've never seen Scheider as anything other than a cop and a good guy. And in this case, he's. And the other thing that I recognize about him, maybe it's because he's standing next to Donald Sutherland. He's not that tall.
No.
He's not a big guy, right?
No, he's probably my size, 5'9", maybe less.
And slight.
Bigger boat.
Yeah, we're going to need a bigger
boat. Yep.
We need a bigger boat.
I use that all the time.
Oh, do you? It's
that was a great movie.
Yeah. So Mark Hamill made a comment about Trump. It was something negative about Trump related to the shooting, and I just wrote a comment on Twitter that says, "Luke, you are no longer my son." In Star Wars, Luke, you're my son. No, Luke, you're no longer. I just own you.
Mark Hamill's another wimpy little leftist rag.
But he's so Rod Scheider, trying to get that right, John, and he's a pimp for the high class call girls, right? So and it's interesting because they go through the movie. Here he is, right here. They go through the movie, and it's the gal they're looking for him seems to be stepping down. So it starts up with a high class call girl. She gets hooked on heroin, I think it was, and she steps down, and she keeps going down to these different brothels who. Addiction is not a problem. Other things are not a problem. This guy, of course, he implies that all his girls are clean and their addiction is not allowed. I'd say that's probably
and he got rid of the one chick because she was just
right here it says that the one chick that later ends up floating, that she set Bree up, that she knew this guy was violent and she wanted to bring Bree down, and he's telling him that she set up Bree to get her ass kicked
by this guy.
By this guy, yeah.
By the killer, yeah, because Bree was making too much money, too much competition.
Yep.
It never ends. This competition. In every workplace, you have it, right? And and there's no honor amongst thieves, right? And this, and it's in West Hollywood, you dealt with a lot of different prostitution issues, right? And they were, I remember one guy stabbed another guy. They were male prostitutes, caught him in the descending order over a drug deal, and the guy died. Right, I got there. Remember the Yellow Submarine, John?
Yep.
I get there just as the guy he's still talking, and but he caught him in the descending order, and I'm trying to help the guy, but there's no way I could help the guy. I couldn't see the blood, but he just nicked that descending order and he bled out. So there's no honor among thieves here with these prostitutes, as you see in this scene. So Rod Schneider, let's see, I think it's Arlen Page. Is that the name of the girl they're going to look for? Is that the name?
That was the second one. First they looked for Jane McKenna, and then Arlen Page was the second one.
Yeah, it says seeing her future.
She's the one that set up Bree.
Right, seeing her future is dead prostitutes is seeing her future. So I think, she's saying if she stays on this path, it's not a positive thing. She's recognizing this, Bree, or there we go, Arlen Page. She's a junkie. Yeah, and when they get hooked, man, you don't know where you're going to find these folks at. They could end up anywhere. I mean, one of the reasons why I never went to narcotics. Did you ever serve a search warrant with narcotics on a shooting gallery where there's a bunch of people there? Ugh. I never
like
wanted,
going in there.
I didn't want to go in there, but you're the uniform with the team, and you go in there, and they say, "Well, you want to help search?" No, thank you. I'm out of here. I just want to go.
Exactly. I'll guard the door.
I want to go take a shower and get sandblasted because I talked to Anthony Shapiro on this stuff. teeth took down. He says, yeah, you see when they get so hooked on coke or meth or heroin that the drive for that next fix overcomes all those social norms that they would have. Stay clean, wearing clean clothes, taking care of your hygiene. All that stuff goes out the window because the most important thing is the next fix, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if these prostitutes get into this addiction stuff, they go down this path of addiction and go from high class to low class, which is what we're seeing with Miss Page here. They get to a point where they could be anywhere because they accept anything, right? They're willing to be in a shooting gallery. They're willing to do whatever it takes just to get that next fix, which is why the pimps try to get them under influence, because they want to control them. They want to break down what they see as the appropriate social norms. So now I'm talking to the prostitutes. They want to get them to look past that so that they're focused on their next hit. I'll get some comments from you afterwards, but I think we are at break time. Martina, are you ready to roll the commercial? If you can. Yes? No? You're muted.
Yes. Give me a second here. Today has been a very particular day with my computer. So,
John is going potty.
Yep. Here we go.
Meet the Seattle Vigilante. Like so many comic heroes, this warrior hides his identity. But his identity isn't the only secret he has to keep. After grievous wounds received during combat, Tier 1 operator John Russell begins to recover and comes to terms with his new reality of being an amputee. And as he learns how to use his new prosthetic limb, he finds himself caught up in the bureaucratic red tape that too many wounded veterans experience, the exhausting medboard process. Out of sheer frustration, John takes it out on the criminal scum of the city. But when reality kicks in, John realizes he started something that's having an impact on the greater world around him, and thus has to reevaluate his motives. And moreover, just how far is John willing to go to finish this war he's declared against the criminals in Seattle? And will he even survive? From the creator of IDW's award-winning graphic novel Code Word Geronimo comes a new story about a different kind of warrior, Vindicated Inc., the first of its kind disabled veteran action hero comic. The Vindicated Inc. graphic novel crowdfunding campaign on fundmycomic.com is provided in the description of this video. We hope you become a contributor. Please share this link. Thank you.
There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all. Movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis. Official scoops from Geekosity magazine. Reviews and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield. Well, they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then.
Welcome back to Morning Coffee with the Chief, and there's John. Hey, Lee just said Donald Sutherland, his first movie appearance was in The World Time 10 Over. It was a 1963 British drama film, and he just makes
a tall man
brief,
in a nightclub.
Is he? He just makes a brief. He's a tall man in a nightclub. Thank you, John. I'll hear. I just need to let you and Lee talk. You guys are like. The mind melt on the trivia.
When we were doing our last segment, somebody, I'm not sure who, asked if Frank Sinatra had played any detectives. And if they're still on, let them know.
Yeah, he
played
said it
detective
was
a
Frank
lot.
Rome, Tony Rome.
Tony Rome, also the
but-
movie The Detective, and the movie Tony Rome, and about 10 others. But those are the two really best ones.
Oh, Tony Rome.
Sylvester
Tony Rome
Stallone
and
was
The
in
Detective.
Klute.
Huh?
Sylvester Stallone was in Klute.
Oh, where was he?
He's one of the guys in the nightclub. He's unaccredited role. He's one of the background guys in the nightclub.
That's right. You're right. I missed it. Did you see who else was in Klute?
No.
Archie Bunker's wife.
Oh yeah. No, I got to see him for her because I had to do that. You know, I mean, come on,
exactly.
Edith Bunker.
And she sounds the same, Gene Stapleton.
Yeah,
and it's same kind of nasally
Archie.
voice. Archie,
Yeah.
you know.
Out with my clothing, Archie.
So I had somebody on my show, on one of my shows. I had him on. He did one of the Dirty Harry ones, and he had been killed by Clint Eastwood in a movie, killed by Charles Bronson in a movie. This is an extra, and he was killed by Frank Sinatra on Magnum PI. So he had the distinction of being killed by 3 A-listers, is what I told him. So he's friends with Mike Astley, so I had him on. He was in one of the Dirty Harry movies. Good guy, Kevin.
Yeah,
Mr.
the
Howard.
blonde guy. He played in Deadpool, I think. He played a bad guy in it.
He played it wasn't Deadpool.
It was one of them. Magnum Force. It was one of them.
I think it started out with no, it was where's the one where they chasing the militants. I forget which one that one. The Enforcer. The Enforcer.
The Enforcer.
Anyways, let's roll.
When Clint Eastwood's in the elevator leaving court.
Yes, that's the guy.
And the guy says something to him. Clint Eastwood goes, he goes something.
You dog
something
shit.
to the extent of, you know what happens to dog shit? It dries up and blows away. And I'm like, what? And he's looking at him like, what?
And that's the actor that was on my show, Kevin Major Howard.
Yeah,
Good guy, but he got killed by 3 A-listers and 3 different productions. So I thought it was interesting.
Good for him. Hey, at least he was busy making money.
Well, he was making money. Right now, I guess I was going to have him on a show, but he's doing the World Poker Tour. I guess he's a poker player. Let's roll the scene. Hype.
The bartenders at the club does that.
Oh.
Yeah, he's a professional poker player.
Well, but he's got a bartend.
So was Scott Diamond.
He doesn't go in every tournament, but he's in the big one.
Got it.
One. They have different divisions too.
So we're going to see the 2 hypes. So it's going to be Paige and her boyfriend, and just how desperate they are because they're getting visited by their dealer, and Klute's there, and he looks like a cop. That was pretty real life. Yeah, I thought that was pretty realistic. Get out of here! Don't bother us! Don't interfere with the most important thing in our life, and that's getting our next hit, right?
Yeah. Don't let our junkie, our supplier, see you.
Right. And they just want to ask questions, but I thought this was pretty realistic. The desperation for them to get their next hit, right? And you guys have dealt with hypes before, John. This happens, right? They're out there at 3 o'clock in the morning after everybody's gone home, trying to make that love connection to get their next hit, right?
Yeah, and you know when the supplier gets there and he sees him in Donald Sutherland in a suit, he just takes off, and they run after him. They can't catch him. They come back in. You can see he's going through withdrawals. The guy, and he's just sweating. He's just a mess. He looks horrible, and she's trying to calm him and pat his head and everything. That's realistic. It was very realistic.
There's desperation that takes over, right, Scott? So I mean, they'll answer any question you have just to get you the hell out of there, so they can get.
They're the best informants.
Yep. Right.
You flash a $20 bill, they'll tell you everything. You bring them a pack of cigarettes, they'll tell you anything.
True.
Well, I always looked at I always think, what are these people doing to themselves? Is what I always would think.
Well, where I worked was mostly crack at that time. Yeah. So, we call them cluckheads because they always walk around looking like chickens, trying to see if there's a rock on the ground or a coin, something that could benefit them. After a drug dealer would leave for the day, they'd be over there looking all over the place to see if he dropped anything.
Yeah, it's like the guy that always looks in the payphone for the quarter, right?
Yeah.
That's who they are. You know, I remember you guys know Joe Morales, right? Joe was my trainee,
Yeah.
and I said, "Well, let's go find somebody under the influence of methamphetamine. It shouldn't take very long." Sure enough, I'm driving down Sunset, and there's this guy on the bus bench doing the whole, tweaking
Oh yeah.
movement. And I go, "There he is. Okay, let's go get him." Because I was getting them to. I want to, you know how it is when you arrest a bunch of people so they get the booking time down, and I wanted to teach them how to do a hype as well, right? Because most of them were, by that point, they're shooting meth, they're not snorting it, right? And so teach them how to handle a hype, and it's just what I always thought, God, what are these guys doing to themselves? Particularly, I mean, I started working streets in '85, so AIDS came in, right? So they're shooting the needles, right? They're sharing needles, they're shooting dope, sharing needles, and then they're having sex with people, right? And who are not, and it's not, many times it's not protected because they just want that fix, so they're willing to do whatever it takes. And for me, I always felt like this is almost a death sentence what these guys are doing. What do they do? That's kind of how I felt about it, and so I do see that in the desperation in the scene, just how far hypes will go.
Oh yeah.
And the other thing is, he said, "I got a radio, don't run." So they stole something. That's the other part of this. Remember, he said, "I got a radio, don't run. I'm going to exchange the radio for dope." And I think people are realizing right now, in the advent of Prop 47 here in California, or these easing up of crimes in our major jurisdictions, that if you don't deal with the drug, the hypes, and the people addicted, they will start stealing. And you hear that in this thing. I got a radio I can exchange for drugs. That happens, right? If you don't deal with the drugs, Scott,
most burglaries that happen in normal people like our homes is people looking for the drugs in your medicine cabinet and anything they can sell or pawn or anything to get money for drugs. Same with car burglaries. Professionals steal high-end cars. They don't burn and steal, a 1985 Corolla.
Yeah.
I worked, I hated taking burg reports, so I worked the hypes. And when you work the hypes, you reduce the burgs. That's just the way it is. And so you see that in here. Hey, so Lee Davis, yes, I did just maybe before he came out, we talked about Jane Fonda was getting her Academy Award. She got some advice from her dad about basically restraining what you say when you're up there. So yeah, they probably weren't on the same page, I'm sure. In 72, so she would have done this movie in 71, would have gotten the award in 72, had probably already been to Vietnam to become Hanoi. I think you spell Hanoi there wrong. Hanoi Jane, and I think her dad. It was in this thing that I was reading that her dad basically told her to be restrained on what she says, which makes sense to me. I mean, I don't tell everybody what I think of them when I'm working the streets, because you want the bad guys to talk to you, right? If you're telling them that they're lower than, whatever, bond scum, they're not going to talk to you, right? And I think if you're an actor or actress, I don't get these people where, like Tom Cruise, he's not real political. He's got some other issues going on, but he doesn't really weigh in too much because, he wants to be the guy that gets everybody to come to the movie, right? I mean, you want everybody to come. You don't care what their politics are. You want them to buy the ticket.
Exactly.
So I never really understood this whole activism. And, and the other thing about actors and actresses, no, I'm fairly well read. I know you guys are. I got a political science degree. John's got 1 master's or 2, something like that. And Scott, you're in the military. I mean, we have a more broader experience than a lot of actors and actresses do right now, because a lot of them haven't been in the military, like the World War II generation. They don't have a lot of life experience, and then they want to preach to us on how we ought to live our life. Drives me crazy. May I ask a panel question of explanation? Go ahead, and I do feel this way about Alex Soros. Is now the guy, the only sweat he's done is in hot yoga. The guy hasn't had a callus on his hand his entire life, and now he's running billions of dollars that's going to help shape how we should think. Think about it, right? Right. He hasn't worked up. He's never dug a ditch to get a paycheck. He's never, swung a sledgehammer. He doesn't know what the rest of us has done during the course of our life. He's never served in the military. And yeah, and I truly believe the only sweat he worked up is maybe in the backseat of a car with some unfortunate woman or at hot yoga, right? He doesn't, he doesn't
Exactly.
know what life is all about, right?
True.
Okay. Hey,
Hey, your question there from Lee Anthony Davis. Yes, we
Yeah.
are all ex-policemen, but we have other stuff in our background. Scott retired as a sergeant, I believe, and he was in the Marine Corps before that. So he's given service to his country and
went
the
to
county.
Went to college.
Yeah,
So
football player.
he's he's got a couple of different careers between the Marines and the Sheriff's Department. I was a professional athlete, and then I was a cop for 32 years in LA. And Chief Jordan, he was a cop for what, 35?
38 years. Yeah, I was a slow learner.
Years, but before that he was an altar boy. So I had to mess with you,
I should not let you answer that question, hey. But, and now I do podcasting, Lee. So here's the deal. If you want to hear a podcast on politics, public policy, and the news, listen to my show on KGRADB.com, KGRA Radio, where it is called Briefing with the Chief. And I forget what I'm doing tomorrow. Oh, I got a guy who left California and ran for mayor and ran for the Board of Supervisors. We're just going to talk about some California politics. But I got a couple New York coppers coming on. They had me come on their show about the shooting with Trump, and so I'm going to ask them some of the questions I asked you, and we'll dig into that when they're guests on my show.
I like that other show that you do. I did I think one or two with you, and it's shorter. I was surprised it was only an hour, but it's very well done, and it comes with a lot of ground.
I got Ralph Arnells come on. He runs around his community doing presentations on fentanyl. I need to do a show on fentanyl, so he's going to come on. I got the DA from is it Harris County? I think it is, or Hayes County. It's the county for Houston.
Harris.
She was she was funded by Soros. She defeated the Republican. She did some progressive changes, but she said, hey, I can't agree with zero bail, and I need more money for my office. I'm short-staffed. And so the people who are further left than her got upset. And a organization called the Fair and Just Prosecutions, run by Miriam Krinsky, who I worked with when Jim McDonald brought her in, and George Gascon's on the board, targeted her, primaried her, and she lost her primary to a much further left guy, and she's pissed. I saw her on another show. She worked with our department when Houston realized they had a gang problem. And so I have her coming on my show. So I'm really excited about that one, because I want to draw the connection between Gascon, Soros, and this national movement for these progressive prosecutors, and that it's that they will use, if you don't toe the line, these progressive prosecutors who get Soros money don't toe the line, they'll take you out. Now, I did hear Soros is not funding Gascon, but I kind of equate that to, I know I'm doing a movie here. Soros is a guy who looks for the best value for the buck, right? And he's looking at the Gascon race and says, there's no amount of money I can spend to make this win. So he's ducking out of that. So let's say, I guess you all have been in very dangerous situations. When did you beat all those years? When you did the beat? Oh, when you did the beat all those years ago. Yeah,
You've seen.
I could talk about some of my notes. Scott was there for one that I was in, but it was mostly Scott that was doing it. I just had to pick up the pieces. But a couple of them.
Carson.
A couple of them in Carson. Yeah, I when we had the shooting, the Trump thing. When those shootings happen, right? People react with different competency levels, and I don't want you to name names, right? Some people are right on it. They handle it. Others are confused and disoriented. And, there's one thing I realized about if you're the person who has the most information and you're prepared, you're going to react the best. If you don't know what's going on, you're struggling to find out what's going on in a situation where your cognitive thinking is degraded. It's much harder to do. That's why I'm probably not as tough on the CIA folks, or I'm sorry, the Secret Service folks there at the Trump thing. I don't know what level of experience they have. I don't know whether the Secret Service gave them the training they needed to do. Did they push these people up without the experience? I don't know that. All I know is those who have the best information and mindset where they're trained and ready to go react the best, and those who aren't
True.
react
Absolutely.
poorly. And that's been my experience when you're dealing with these high risk, high incident kinds of things. I don't know, Scott. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've always had the mindset of you got to be prepared, and you got to be good with what you do. Like I was saying earlier about the quarterly, when we went to the quarterly qualification system. But I've always been an advocate, instead of standing in a trailer and shooting a target, was we should do the combat course.
Yeah.
Instead of once a year, we should do it 4 times a year. Because that's
agree.
where it really matters. Because you're under a
100%.
high stress situation, you have a time limit. You have to hit the target so many times. So you have to be able to function and think at the same time. Standing in a trailer and shooting a target, yeah, that's better than just doing it once or twice a year.
Yeah, Cam. I actually started in '83, went through the academy, did about a year and a half in custody, and they were pushing people out because of the Olympics at the time. So, that push was still rolling. So I managed to hit the streets in '85. Did most of my time in the streets. I enjoyed it. Worked so many different areas. I mean, I tell people I worked West Hollywood, Carson, Crescenta Valley, Century, Compton, Transit, then custody as an executive for a while, and then East Patrol Division. My most serious injury came as a chief when somebody T-boned me as a chief and knocked me
Well, I know what Scott's been through, and he's very well prepared. And he's one guy, I'll tell you right now, I've told you earlier, there's women that I would work with before some men. I'll work with Scott. I go to war with Scott anytime.
It's the thing
Smart
about when those
and intelligent
what I liked
dedicated.
about when it happens, I can remember, well, I'll say it, the Carson lobby shooting. What I immediately thought was, okay, I have to be in charge here. I can't break down and I have to be in charge, right? And so you take charge, and I want you to do this. I just went down. It's basically it's a crime scene, so you're just kind of going through what needs to happen with injuries and that kind of stuff, and a shooting. Yeah, so you just kind of what you have to do. You just need to put yourself in the mindset to get it done. Lower down your anxieties and your adrenaline and get focused on leadership when it has to be done. I kind of saw that in Trump when he reacted with his fist bump. He recognized, I have to let them know that I'm okay. I have to let them know that I'm moving forward. This won't, and he did that, and that was inspirational. Let's ask you if you on the panel, if your real reality is portray cops. There's so many cop movies out there, and portraying cops like I've done LA Confidential, and that was probably pretty dead on back then, right? LA Confidential's Gangster Squad, because I had people who historically knew what was going on, because we had Buzz Williams, it's Buzz, right? Buzz Williams on, and every time we had issues with the Gangster Squad or involving LAPD, we brought him on, and he did clarify, a lot of that was true, but that is different than how we do it now, right? So it's completely different. So, and I think some people say they like End of Watch. I haven't seen that one. That's
End of Watch is excellent. It's pretty realistic in their personal life and their on-duty life.
And there's the investigative stuff. I do, because they squeeze an investigation to 90 minutes, but so how do you an investigation that might take you several months, they squeeze it into 90 minutes, and so they have to kind of cut corners for so it's hard to say, is it realistic? So you kind of look at, when you're doing the movies, you look at, is that a reasonable thread to follow in an investigation? And then you might see some good tactics like Scott talked about. You just lay it out there and you be quiet and let them talk. That's an investigative strategy. So you might see some of those strategies in the movie where you go, okay, that's real life, but it's really hard to replicate it completely, Because, for example, you see that some of the stuff that happens, you'll be writing for a week, and you don't ever see that in the movie, right, or a television show. So you don't see that part of it. You see, go home. No, go to the station and write the report, and then you get to go home, right? So, so there are some things that are when you watch them,
especially shootings.
Yeah,
nobody goes back on the streets. The next day,
I let you go back. I let you go back on the street.
You're on the desk. Yeah,
you let me go back on the street because it happened in the station. Of course, our numbnut captain wanted to put me on the desk where it happened.
He never told me he didn't like me, but I have a feeling he didn't like me.
Well, I knew he didn't like me. He had told me that he was going to find a way to get me to leave on many occasions. And the funny thing was I wasn't a recalcitrant or anything.
But you got in a shooting. He did not want anybody to look up to you because you'd been involved in a shooting, and that was such a weirdest mindset. It kind of goes in this whole 21st century policing model. We got to get back to the movie. Okay, is the employee the killer? Is the employer the killer? So we start getting a feeling that the person that hired Klute is actually the killer, right? And I think Klute is beginning to get that idea. And this is the first part of it. He's asking questions that, and you can see Klute is getting clued in here, right? Okay, there's something more going on here, right? And this is the first part that I realized, okay, I think this guy's the killer, right? What do you think, John? I know you talked about this. What was your clue?
Yeah, I'll tell you why I knew. A lot of these movies, this is what's funny, is they hire people that are character actors that are in a certain genre. They play the heavy. They play the bad guy. They play the cop. But as soon as I saw Siafi at that dinner party in the beginning, and there's no other big name actors other than Donald Sutherland there, I'm thinking, he's the fucking killer. But then when I saw later on, he starts listening to the tape, I'm like, oh, he's a pervert? He's the killer. It just solidified it. But yeah, that's the problem with some of the movies. Because I've seen, he's a great actor, always been a character actor, Charles Siafi, Italian guy. But he's always played either a police chief or a lawyer or a bad guy executive. And there you go. He's a bad guy executive.
All right. We got a question. Have we ever advised on a movie? No, I have not officially advised on a movie. However, I was working a movie job called Cop with James Woods. They had a couple of LAPD homicide guys who were technical advisors. The show was situated in West Hollywood, meaning the scenes were also in West Hollywood. So they were using character actors as deputies. And I was looking at the uniform of the character actor, and I said, why do you have the speedy loaders? Speedy loaders are pouches where you have extra ammo in, upside down. If one of those things flip open, who's doing this? And I said it out loud in front of one of the producers, right? So the technical advisor comes over to argue with me. I go, what are you talking about? And in a gunfight, it comes out faster. I go, this ain't a dump pouch. It's a speedy loader. If you drop one of those, you lose 6 rounds, right? I mean, so, to shut me up, they put me in the scene. So you see the back of my head in this scene, and my uniform is right. My speedy loader is right. So no, I have not officially advised on a film, but I did give advice, and they placated me by telling me to shut up and get in the scene. So you guys didn't know that about me, right? But yeah, you'll have to pull up that film. I haven't done that film, but yeah, I don't know if I think I'm in it. Yeah. So let's see. Okay, so we answered that question. Okay, so we think this guy is the killer. It's John's. You're right, John. That's what I call movie ESP, right? You look at it and figure it out. We got to catch up on time here. So let's roll the next. I don't know what he wants. He took care of me. So I think this is I think this is where Klute begins to take care of Jane Fonda. The relationship gets tight. I believe that's why I wrote that down. Let's roll the scene and we'll see. But she's helping him to. Unfortunately, I watched this movie 2 weeks ago, so I have to remember. Right? She's helping him to find our folks, and Arlene ends up dead. Right? And here's the other thing about the scene when they figure out Arlene is dead. What's the boyfriend worried about?
How's he going to get his drugs?
That's right. His next hit. He's not worried about the facts that he's
Yep.
dead. Yes,
It's
that's
up.
right, Ken. Unsolicited advice gets you a show. Yes, got me a
And-
scene. Yeah.
Yep. And Donald Sutherland gives him a 20 to help him with his drug habit.
I'm telling you, $20 goes a long way with it.
Yeah.
So this is the 70s to the 90s. $20 still cuts it, right? Well, crack cocaine I think heroin was a little more expensive than crack cocaine. You know, when it got to rocked and it went from powder to rock, it made it. I call it the poor man's drug.
Yeah.
Now everybody can afford it because the ingestion. I won't go into the whole ingestion method, but it made it addictive. But it also made it available to the poor folks, and that's the part that doesn't get out there when we talk about the war on crack and the war on drugs. Why we had to do what we had to do. So, John, you want to talk about the scene here? Here we are. It looks like they're going to have a love scene now. She's feeling like he's taking care of her. I think
Yep.
she used some heroin here too, right? And now he's getting her sober, right? That's part of what's going on here.
Yep. Yeah, and they end up making love.
All I'm thinking to Klute is, what are you doing? She slept with what? As John said, 750 men a year. I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly. Like, ew. But they fell in love. It was deep. It was touching. And
Can you say that with a little more contempt, John?
and I'll tell you, seeing her naked, it really might even want to throw up. But worse than her Vietnam stuff. It's like, but yeah, exactly. He falls for it, you know. And there's the scene right there where he gives the $20 to the guy, to the Arlene Page's boyfriend, because he's hyper and he doesn't know where he's going to get his next hit. That's another thing I wouldn't do.
Oh, yeah, it's I you know, people who think that they can use recreationally and that sometimes it won't impact them. You know, unfortunately a couple friends of mine who out of high school got into using and they're both dead now, and because for a long time they were using, they finally got clean, but they had destroyed their bodies so much because it's the other part of crack and
giving them money, you're just going to give them more drugs.
Yeah.
You know, one time in Prescott, and one time, God, I don't know where it was, over here in the east side. You know, I was going somewhere, I stopped to get gas, and there's this kid going through the trash cans. He's probably 25, and you can tell he's been
he's all sucked up.
He's pulling out all pieces of candy and everything. I'm like, you dude. And I didn't give him money. I took him inside, you know, you pick what you want, hot dogs, snacks, whatever, and I bought him all that stuff. Because he's got to eat. I'm not going to give him money that he's going to turn into drugs. Come here.
Well, yeah, meth and coke. If you're not eating, it starts. When you're not taking care of yourself by eating, it starts to eat your muscle. It starts to eat the protein you have. That's why these guys get all thinned up. And it's like they're on the meth keto diet, right? Because then they smell because they're on keto and they're ketosis and they're killing themselves. That's why I never understood it. I mean, did you ever see the before and after picture of people on meth? You know, this is what they were when they graduated high school. 2 years later, when they started using meth, they're missing teeth. They're all sucked up. I mean, I always felt that those were good. Ooh, stay away from this stuff kind of pictures.
Yeah.
But this relationship between Klute and Jane Fonda it's now become where I say daddy issues. She has daddy issues for him. She's looking for that protector. And she's, unfortunately, the control that she had, she's not willing to give up, in my opinion, for the protection that he can offer, right? He's the big, strong, strapping guy that's gonna let's see. Right. Sutherland Jane Fonda gives a powerful performance, and the scripts are deep, the emotional built up, enthralling, and ending in a good style. You know, I have to tell you, let's just go ahead and roll right in the next scene because we're playing catch up with Stalker. Cuts up close, so she's getting stalked. But Lee, I did read that Jane Fonda said that she really didn't bleed with the premise of the movie, where woman's having trouble, woman's using heroin here and there, woman is engaging in prostitution. Big stroppy man comes along and saves the day. She didn't like that narrative. It went against,
of course, not. She was a
feminist ethos of the time, and So yeah, the plot kind of, hey, that was a plot, but it really, she said that, you know, she didn't like that part of the movie, right? She also influenced saying, initially it was supposed to be a male psychologist, and she says that won't work. No woman is going to open up to a male psychiatrist as much as they would open, because if she's somebody that's used to manipulating men, she's going to be manipulating him in that, whereas
Well,
with a
she
woman
may have been
psychologist,
right in that point.
yeah, she might have
Give
been
her
right.
that.
So she was deeply involved in manipulating the script and all that kind of stuff, but she didn't like the notion that this woman needed a man to save her. You know, I tell you, if you're addicted, you need somebody to step in and help you, whether it's in this situation. I mean, I'm still on the board of the LA Mission, and we just had a meeting, and a lot of the people down in downtown Skid Row are addicted, and somebody has to step in and help them. And in the place of the mission, it's faith-based, so for them it's God. They see that, and cognitive behavioral therapy programs, all the typical stuff. But if you're really addicted, it's not just going to happen overnight. Somebody's got to step in, and many times family has been burned out. They're not interested, right? So the premise of this film is somebody steps in and helps her. It happens to be a romantic interest, but it's really hard for a person to do it on their own. So in some ways, I understand where Jane Fonda's coming from, but in other ways, somebody's got to be there. You know, John, what do you think?
No, I agree. I don't want to go ahead to the end of the movie, but that premise at the end was just wishful thinking.
Yeah, it was fairy tale. So
yeah, exactly.
You know, Prince Charming comes along and kisses Snow White, and she wakes up, and you know, now the woke people say, "Oh my God, he kissed her without her permission." You know, that's she's passed out, she's incapacitated. Oh my God, how could we show this? And Disney, that's this craziness that they say now. But
well, at the end when she's talking to her psych, and she's saying, you know, how can I be with him? You know, I've got to, you know, do this, and she sounds like she's leaning more towards staying the hooker and doing her thing with the tricks. And then at the end, she leaves with him. And I'm like, that's going to last about a week. But, different.
Yeah, see, Fonda's character has to be strong to survive, especially in the world that she lives in. Do you agree? Yes, I think anybody who goes through that and recovers is that takes character. I mean, to slide into it, I think can happen to a lot of people. They start using drugs. But it takes character and self-realization that you need to get out of it. My point is, it's generally not something that's going to be done on your own. You're going to need help. You're going to need to seek out help. I got a show that I'm going to be doing. I just lined up the guest. I don't know if you guys, the Police Officer Fellowship, where we're talking about, you know, alcohol addiction and what they do to solve that problem. They're going to come on and we'll talk about it. But even the strongest of people need help when they're addicted, right? So yeah, strong character. However, her blatherings afterwards that she, you know, somebody's got to help, whether it's the man, her love interest, or her dad, or her mom, or, you know, some social service agency. In that situation, somebody's got to help. So somebody breaks into her apartment and rips up her clothes, and so it's real now, and they're kind of narrowing down who this is. I think Klute already knows who it is.
Oh yeah.
But he's just got to gather the evidence, right? And so let's roll to the next scene. Who is it? Who is this serial killer? And he's realizing that Paige is probably killed. He's seeing this typed letter. He recognizes that he recognizes other typed letters. This is where he does the connection. He sees the typed letter to, I believe this to Jane Fonda, and then some other typed documents that he got from his employer, and he makes that connection, right? This is how this is, you know, for, I think it was Anthony who, our lead, that asked the question, you know, as some of the other things real life. Yes, this is one of those real life things where you're looking at a printer, a key strike, and how it strikes on paper, and doing it in comparison to others so that you can identify what printer or typewriter made that document and who does that belong to. In this case, they're doing a comparison. Klute already he has kind of a control sample. He got it from this guy, the bad guy, and now he has the sample from that, I think, that Jane Fonda got, and he's able to link it. Now he knows. Now that's real police work, right, Scott? That's how those things are kind of done, right?
Yeah, and most investigations, they're not what you see on TV. I mean, I don't even watch cop shows, any of them, let alone cop movies anymore. Um, I do like to watch live PD or whatever it is. I mean, if people really want to see what cop work in the field is really like, then watch like live PD or whatever it is.
No, I agree with that.
You have a panel of 2 cops, and they go, 5 different locations across the country. But you also get to see some really bad tactics.
Yes.
So, I mean, you got to take the good with the bad. But investigations are not. I mean, I had a guy shoot at one of the deputies in Compton, and it took 8 months before I finally got the suspect to turn himself in. Of course, I did search warrants every month on everybody in his family. So eventually he got tired of me and called me.
Says, where can I meet you at?
Exactly. Of course, he brought, I don't know what he expected, but he brought one of the local news people, reporters. And when I just walked out, put the handcuffs on him, I said, "Hey, you guys need anything?" They're like, "Oh, no." And then I took him in the back. That was the end of it. I don't know what they were expecting, but
Hoping to get a statement, I guess. Probably.
yeah, I guess I was going to say something mean to him.
Yeah. They're going to pat the news media down. Are you guys armed? So yeah, just
But I like here where he knows, he's pretty much knows that he has the bad guy, and now he's going to set him up for the I need $500 to buy this book. So now the bad guy is like, "Oh crap, my name's in that book." So now he's got to do something. He kind of forces the bad guy's hand.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining us, Lee, and we will hope to see you in the future. Yeah, I think yes, right. He's kind of forcing the bad guy's hand. He's kind of flushing him out because he is a powerful industrialist, which of course he has to be. It's the 70s, right? It can't be just some. Most of our serial, because you think on it, where do the serial killers don't necessarily come from powerful industrialists. Although we had that guy Durst, he was running around killing people. He killed his wife, and he killed his friend who was afraid with talking. He killed his neighbor, so he was a serial killer. But But he was also wearing a dress. He wasn't put together like this guy. So, if you remember, they caught him wearing a dress or something like that. And so they're coming face to face with the bad guy. They're figuring out how it is. I think Martine, if you can, we got a couple scenes left, but I need to do the Edith Bunker scene. If you can just throw that real quick in there. And so Jane Fonda's in trouble, and she's looking for one of her tricks that was a regular customer, Mr. Goldfarb, an older guy. And here's his secretary, Edith Bunker, Archie, and she's got the same shtick, right? She's got the same shtick going here, and which I really liked her. Oh God, I want to call her Edith Bunker. What's her real name? It's
Maureen Stapleton.
Jean Stapleton.
Jean Stapleton, yes.
Maureen's the aunt or something.
And and so I did the show. It was with Paul Newman, Fort Apache, the Bronx, and Olympia Dukakis she was in the movie, and she played a pretty good character role. She played a kind of a nasally police officer who was kind of running a briefing at a time. But I like these things where you see people who end up famous for some reason, see them in the movie, and they got this bit character actor spot, and that's Jean Stapleton. And let's roll on to Face to Face. Now she ends up. I thought this was really. This scene where she ends up in Goldfarb, that wasn't a cleaning thing. It was a textile factory, right? So they're making clothes there, right? Which was big in New York for a while.
Garment district, yep.
The garment district. And she ends up, and she has to use this phone, which is kind of interesting. So she goes in the office, and Edith leaves. So I didn't. This whole scene for me it wasn't realistic to me.
No,
that she would be left there alone in the building, and Edith wouldn't stay. I would stay and wait till the office was closed. And hey, thanks Cam for joining us. And she's there, and this is where our bad guy is gonna try and take her out. Now, you realize as the show, he's the one who killed Tom, and the explanation is Tom knew what he was up to in terms of his aggressive behavior with prostitutes, and was bribing him as the CEO or CFO or whoever it was of this corporation, and so he had to take Tom out. Whether that's true or not, that's the kind of the explanation, right? And then he had to get rid of Paige, Arlene Page, right? And it's believed that he killed her. So he's a serial killer, right? And now he's coming after Bree or Jane Fonda. And we would call this guy an organized serial killer, right? Because he's organized these things, he knows what's going on, he's in control. And he talks about what led me to be the person I am is when you told me to hit me, it just unleashed all those desires in me, right? So he meets Jane, and she says, "Oh, slap me around if that makes you feel good." And suddenly, all of his demons are out, and he becomes this killer. I don't think that's the path to serial killing myself, but it's kind of what they explain here. What do you think, John? I know you're doing the potty dance, but what do you think?
No, I'm stretching. I can't sit too long, with a pinched nerve. But yeah, I agree. Yeah, he was going. I thought he was going to try and do some sexual activities with her there at the end before he killed her. But yeah, he was a strange dude.
Well, for some of these guys, a lot of the serial killers, the act of killing is the sexual.
That's their gratification.
That's part of it. I mean, that's
built
built up.
They get off.
That's how he gets off. He likes causing the pain and violence, and surprisingly, people who do that, it's about a control thing, right? Yep. So she needs to be in control to be a prostitute. He needs to be in control as the John, and you can see that he's very controlled, very organized. But it's also about sexual release. What do you think, Scott?
And the way he's lying to her and he's talking to her, it's like, I've done nothing wrong. It's my right to do this and then. And I'm like, this guy's one wacky dude. What's funny? Just on a side note, Prime has a show. It's like 3 segments on the guy that did Penthouse Magazine, Bob Guccione.
Mike Guccione, okay.
And he went from a billionaire to nothing.
Really?
All from his own proclivities. Once he did the movie Caligula, which was just nothing but smut, and then he got all the lawsuits, and he went downhill. But one of the penmates, the centerfold, was living in his house, and on the side dating his son and doing him. But she even said, now in a later, she's probably 65, 70 now. She says the weirdest thing is he couldn't get off until he'd lay in the bathtub and I'd have to golden shower him.
Oh.
Yeah, that's how he got off.
Okay, so that wasn't a story.
Here in this movie, he's doing all this stuff. He's probably he's beating up women, he's getting aroused, but until he kills her, he doesn't get his climax. He doesn't finish that euphoria that he's looking for until he kills somebody.
I think that's what he's talking about when you unleashed the monster. I can't be satisfied with just normal sexual interactions. Exactly. I must have violence. And you can see that with these sexual sadist serial killers. They have to ratchet it up. And the fear is also part of their desire. They get off on that. And this is serial killers who both kill men and women sexually. I mean, this is what they're all about. Scott, what do you think?
Well, first, I don't understand who leaves her business unlocked so she can sit
no.
where she wants.
I agree. It's unrealistic.
It's closed. We're closing. Well, let me leave a note. Okay, goodbye.
Yeah, exactly. But
what?
He says when he's explaining what's going on, he tells Jane Fonda that or Bree that the gal he murdered screamed, and that's the first time that's ever happened to him. So I guess that meant that left him no choice but to, because he didn't control it, that he's got to kill her now. And he, a lot of these guys, to me, I always joked, it's like Viagra. Well, the first time he only needed a 20 milligram pill. Then the second time he needed a 40. Then he needed a 60. Then he needed 100. So that's what this guy reminds me of. Is he starts off, not trying to kill her, but ends up killing her, the first gal. Then he ends up killing Tom because Tom finds out what he's doing. And then he's got to kill Arlie or whatever her name was, because Arlen, because he knows he's giving Klute information. And I think that's why he hires Klute, because it's somebody he knows, and he knows that if Klute's going to report back, so he knows how to
control it,
which route he's got to go. And then he's got Jane Fonda, which is going to be the pinnacle, because he beat her up once, and now he gets to beat her again and kill her.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess he needed the black and blue pill, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I was waiting to say that. As soon as you said that, the blue pill, I go, it's the black. Okay. We're getting way. Well, let's roll the last scene, and Klute comes in and saves the day. So unrealistic murder scene going on here, but there is some realization in these pseudo sadomasochists. Serial killers, they do like the fear. They like that. This is something they get off on, and it's more about the fear and the control of their victim than it is about sex. And that is true. That does happen. But of course, Klute has to save the day, right? So he rolls in here. He figures out where she's at. God, I think she called him, right? And he hustles over there just in time. And the other unrealistic part of this narcissistic guy. Throws himself out the window, right?
Yeah.
I don't think this is a control guy. He's going to think I can control this. He works for me. Exactly. I can control this.
Exactly.
So
at first, I'm looking at that going, did they throw him out? Was it a punch? No, he jumped. Yeah. Nah, that guy ain't going to jump. In real life.
Bundy was.
Martin's
control
right.
freak, and all the way to his execution, he attempted to control aspects of his prosecution every step of the way, and that's what, to me, this killer is akin to him in that he's organized and control, and Bundy gives you a good example of that guy that tries to control the process every step of the way, manipulates the process, only gives up something that you want if he can get something. And that's, so I didn't think it was realistic that this guy tossed himself
No, it wasn't.
out.
You got a producer or director rather that's trying to say that, okay, he's got nowhere to go. He's just going to end it here. So he won't live through the shame. That guy, his brain doesn't work that way. And that's what happens. And plus, it's probably a quicker ending to the show. He's probably out of budget too.
Yeah, they had to pay a lot of money for the A-lister here, and that's why they cut the cat too, right? Because they couldn't afford the cat. Hey, thank you guys for joining me in honoring Donald Sutherland. I liked a lot of his movies, and I wouldn't say this is his best movie, but it's a crime drama that he's in. So thank you for joining me, Scott, again. Hope you had a good time. Anytime. Johnny B, thank you again. You've done all the research on these guys, and I appreciate you for joining me on the show. And
I appreciate it, guys. I'm going to head over to the doctor's office. I'm going to sign off. I'll talk at you later.
All right, man.
Thanks for dinner the other night. We really enjoyed it.
Quite welcome. It was a lot of fun. It was really great touching base with you again. I hadn't seen you in so long. And your wife is just a doll, just a sweethart.
Yeah, everybody likes her.
Yeah.
Not necessarily me.
My girlfriend, nobody likes me.
Well, when we're all in LA together, let me know, and I'll take you guys out.
There you go.
Yeah. What's it? The best Thai place in the state?
Best ever.
You guys can sweat. You can sweat and eat that food, and I'll have the watercress salad. You guys can sweat and have the hot stuff. All right, Martine. I think we have digressed into a place that we don't really want to be. It's time to let these guys go, otherwise it'll get even sillier than it has been. Thank you so much, Scott. Stick around for a quick debrief, and Martine, you can take it away.